Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're going to be taking a first look at a brand new game which just came out on April 23rd. That is Cauldrons of War, Stalingrad. This is the sequel to Cauldrons of War Barbarossa. Cauldrons of War Barbarossa looked at the initial German invasion from June 1941 to the winter and early 1942. Cauldrons of War Stalingrad starts in the late spring, early summer of 1942, either with the operations around Sevastopol and Kerch for one of the smaller scenarios, or with the German Fall Blau operation to drive on Stalingrad in the summer of 1942. Today we're going to be starting as the Germans, because this is a game that really, it does technically have like a 1v1 play by email, but I don't think the game is terribly interesting unless you're the one pushing the momentum. If you're totally on the defensive, it's a completely different game, and I'm not sure I've really learned to enjoy being on the defensive yet. But I really appreciate what this game tries to do when you're the attacking party, and I think it's really interesting. So we're going to play as the Germans. We're going to be playing Fall Blau, which starts on June 28th and goes until December of 1942. There are, 6 other scenarios. One of them actually starts in the spring of 42. It starts at the early stages, which is sort of May of 42, the operations around Sevastopol, and also sort of the preparatory phases for army groups, or the 6th Army, while also including, it kind of combines these two scenarios. And I think it also combines some of the winter counteroffensives like Uranus and Wintergewehr, the German counterattack to try to liberate the 6th Army in Stalingrad. But with that being said, today we're going to go ahead. You've got to unlock that. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to play the standard full campaign from the German perspective. We're also going to play on normal difficulty because it's hard enough for me on normal, let alone hard or harder. I can't even imagine how those are going to be. And then we're also going to go ahead and have the historical choices highlighted green so we can kind of see where the Germans went and see how maybe we wish to counter that. So anyway, here we go. Fall Blau. 1941 was a trying year for the Wehrmacht. Not only is the USSR still standing, but the Red Army has also harshly counterattacked throughout the winter. Greatly diminished, German forces are preparing to revive the assault. There can no longer be any question of an attack on all fronts like last year, so a plan has been developed to destroy as many enemy forces as possible while seizing the oil wealth of the Caucasus. In order to constitute a sufficient force for this operation, significant means were taken from the center and north of the front. Our main offensive in the south will itself not be ready until June, until cleanup operations will be carried out in the Izium and Crimean areas. Okay, so you can see here, in order to win this game, it looks like there's a couple of different things we need to do. We can get up to 10 points by conquering the Caucasus. We get 5 points for taking Baku, 3 points for Batumi, and Grozny and Maykop are each 1 point. So this is basically trying to take the oil installations for the German Reich so that you can, fuel your war effort by taking the Soviet oil and presumably crippling the Soviet war effort as well. It does say the enemy, and I don't know how this impacts points. I'm guessing these points can decrease. It looks like this is a potential of up to 10 points. But you can see here it says that the enemy is following a scorched earth campaign and will certainly try to destroy their oil installations. Speed is therefore the key to this operation. Control of the Caucasus will put the Black Sea Fleet out of action and will surely have an influence on Turkey. Another objective, cutting the Don-Volga Isthmus, which is worth 1 point. This is when the enemy backs are to the empty steppes, what country will they have left to defend? As for Stalingrad, it is not talked about quite unimportant in the grand scheme of things for now. So I guess this is the primary objective, is cutting the Don-Volga Isthmus, not specifically for Stalingrad, at least at the beginning of the operation. This is how the points are laid out. 1 to 3 points for bleeding the Red Army dry. In this war of attrition, the enemy is undoubtedly in very bad shape. He will not bear the same losses as he did last year. For any operation completed by the Red Army, you lose 2 points. The Führer hates losing ground. And other objectives may appear during the game. You will need at least 6 points to achieve a victory. So really, the only way to get the 6 points, even if you take the Don-Volga Isthmus and you bleed the Red Army dry, that's only 4 points. So to win a victory, you really need to take some of these oil objectives as well. You lose victory points in the following ways. If we lose Kharkov, we lose 2 points. If we lose the Rizhev salient, we lose 2 points. Smolensk loss is 3 points. Raising the siege of Leningrad is 3 points. And access casualties 0 to 3 points. So while this game is going to focus on sort of the southern theater, there are the center and northern aspects of the front are represented, and the Soviets will counterattack up there. So we do have to hold the line there. We can't just strip all our troops down and send them down to the Stalingrad front. Okay, so a fragile alliance. Sean Mack, it's Fallblau as envisioned to this point. Those objectives, by the way, that we were just laying out, those do change throughout the battle based on the decisions that you make or that are pushed upon you. And so you can still have like a German perspective that, maybe Hitler comes in and changes your plans. And it is not a persistent campaign, HJ. Unfortunately, there's no carryover from Cauldrons of War, Barbarossa to Stalingrad. They're completely independent games. I'm not aware of any way where you can take your victories in the first one and carry them over to the second one. Okay, so a fragile alliance. The ambition of our plan is such that we'll not be able to do without our allies this year. Our setbacks last winter have left their mark, and we have to convince our allies that this crisis was temporary without consequences, lying when necessary about the real state of the Wehrmacht. All of them are convinced that their participation in our anti-Bolshevik crusade will enable them to shape the new world order after our victory in the war, but signs of the fragility of the Axis as an alliance are multiplying. Some allies are openly in a wait-and-see attitude and are even trying to establish contacts with Great Britain. Others are keen to keep large amounts of troops on their national territory, and there is much resentment with their neighbors who are Axis members. In the end, 600,000 Italian, Romanian, and Hungarians will fight alongside us. Last year, however, we learned that the military value of our allies is low. To have any chance of success against the Red Army, these allied forces should receive German material, in particular anti-tank guns. But where to find all this equipment when the Wehrmacht itself lacks guns and tanks? So we have two choices. We can either equip them with our own guns, but that will strip Army Group North and Center of vital units, especially if we know that the Soviets are going to be counterattacking up north. That will weaken those units and potentially could cause us to lose the Rizhev salient or lift the siege of Leningrad or other places like that. If we can, so historically the Germans kept the equipment for themselves, but we can equip them if we wish to reduce the effectiveness of Army Group North and Center. I'm going to equip them because I think they're going to be important in guarding our extended flanks, but that does pose the question of how effective we can be in the north. Okay. Our plans are in the hands of the enemy. A liaison aircraft has just crashed behind enemy lines. This would not be so catastrophic if it did not carry the blueprints of the first phase of the Blau plan. A rescue mission was able to locate the aircraft, but they were unable to find the precious documents, which are now probably in the enemy hands. What lessons will the Soviets draw from this information? Will they believe in a disinformation operation, or will they strengthen their defensive system? As the German General Staff, question of speeding up operation arises, but for the time being, the Führer's wrath is felt. At the 23rd Panzer Division, deemed at fault, heads are rolling. The atmosphere is deteriorating. This affair fuels the deep divisions within the high command. Army Group South's command points are -2 this turn. All right, so I'm not sure if this is a historical event or if this is random. I'm trying to remember. I've only played through the first page once, so I'm not really sure. But we'll go ahead and just, I don't really have a choice there. So let's see here. All right, so we're now on to the map. You can see here, this is all of the Eastern Front is currently represented. We've got Army Group North and Center, which are pretty much all on the defensive. We've got the siege of Leningrad going on up here in the north, with the 50th Corps maintaining the siege against the 23rd, 42nd, and 55th Armies up here in the north. We've got the Demelinsk front here with several Soviet armies dug in opposite the 2nd, 10th Corps, as well as the Spanish Azul Division. And then to the further south, we've got, well, that's actually what I was just looking at. We've got the Dnieper-Rizhev Drive, which consists of the 9th and 20th Corps. None of these units have like obsolete equipment according to what I'm looking at, so Even the 46 Panzers, it doesn't say obsolete or anything like that. So, we did pull equipment away from our troops in the north and center to support the troops in the south. I'm not sure if that just lowers the amount of troops and defensive quality that they have or what, but you can see here the 9th Army is in front of Moscow. In the south, a little bit further south, we've got the 2nd Panzer Army and the 532nd Security Division. I don't know that a security division is going to hold much, but the Panzer Army is pretty darn good. And then you've got, as we move further south, with the push toward Orel, the 2nd Panzer Army's dug in, the 532nd Security. I think that's what we just looked at. And then really the Case Blau starts when we move toward Kharkov. So you can see here we've got a Kessel operation, which is already starting on day 1 of the operation, which consists of the 2nd Army, 6th Army, 1st Panzer Army, 4th Panzer Army, a motorized corps, the 2nd Hungarian Army, and the Slovak Fast Division. Now, the Slovak Fast Division is still using obsolete equipment, but the good news for us is that 2nd Hungarian Army does not say obsolete equipment. They've got 15 artillery pieces and anti-tank weapons, 9 infantry. This should be a good, strong unit to hold a flank without being, overwhelmed. So hopefully that does help as we drive east, having a unit like that on a key flank front. Additionally, if we go further south toward Dnipropetrovsk, we do have the 17th Army, which is going to lead the drive into the Caucasus. And then we've got the 3rd Romanian Corps, the Romanian Cavalry Corps, and an Italian armored or mechanized formation. The Italian units here are obsolete, but the Romanian units are not. And again, that's because we stripped forces to support the drive in the south. And then we also have operations in Crimea. The Coastal Army, currently, it looks like they're fatigued based on this heart symbol. They've also got the Sevastopol Navy and the forts there. We have Grupa Mataklot, which is a pretty strong formation of 7 infantry, 4 artillery. We've also got the 30th Corps, the 54th Corps, and then the 22nd Panzer Division, which is apparently obsolete. So I find that interesting, but they're obsolete. And then we've got some siege guns and a Romanian mountain corps all besieging Sevastopol. Obviously, we want to reduce Sevastopol as quickly as we can, because as soon as those troops overwhelm Sevastopol, then we can use them and push them into Army Group South to support the drive there. In reserve, we do have the 1st Mountain Division, which presumably would be useful in the Caucasus. And then we've also got some other units here, a security division, 2nd Romanian Mountain Division obsolete, 3rd obsolete, 1st Romanian Cavalry, 7th Romanian Cavalry, and 9th Romanian Cavalry divisions. In the south, or actually those are all the same units. In Army Group Center, we have the 4th Army in reserve, which is interesting. This is a nice, pretty good unit here that we could try and use here to help the drive in the south if we wanted. Although being in reserve in the center is probably useful if the Soviets start their counteroffensives. This is definitely a unit we could plug into a gap and stop a drive. And then the 59th Corps and a headquarters or HG group. And then in Army Group North, we've got the 39th Motorized Corps and some other units here, but the 39th is kind of our strongest reserve up there. So that's the situation. Army Group North and Center both have 2 command points. Not sure how to use them at the moment. Probably just want to make sure that all my troops are rested and refit. So these guys are dug in. If I go ahead and refit these guys, it does increase their cohesion and their ammunition. So it gets their cohesion up to full. So if the enemy does counterattack there, they'll be more effective. Meanwhile, we've got some other units here in the north. These guys look like our strongest unit. Well, it's kind of a mix. They've got 1 armor, 28th Corps, 1st Corps doesn't, but they're all their cohesion's not great. So we'll go ahead and refit these guys. That uses all our command points in strengthening our defensive line in the north. And then if we go to Army Group Center, we've already got defense in depth. I think that's what this icon represents here, or I think that's defense in depth. And these guys are actually fully reformed and whatnot. So I don't know that I need to refit them. So they're in pretty good shape. What about the troops at Orel? 2nd Panzer Army. The security division could use some refitting, but they're also kind of weak. I'm really tempted to send the 4th Army down to the south and help the drive on Stalingrad. Thanks for the sub, Bizarre Andrew. And then also Mr. Thom 90, Shiffin 9, thanks for the follow. JD Knight, thanks for the sub. The Happy Traveler, thanks for the follow. Wild Weasel 170, thanks for the follow. And whatnot. So, I'm not sure what to do with the Fourth Army. I don't think I need them quite yet, but I might need them soon. I think we'll just hold them in reserve for now. I guess we'll use a refit up on the security division here to get them up to be a little bit more combat effective. And then we'll also use it on the 46th Corps. Panzer Corps. All right, so we used all of our command points in the north and south, just sort of solidifying our positions there. I don't like any of these maps. They all look pretty bad. I guess this is probably the best. All right, let's zoom in here and let's start the offensive. First things first, let's try and... Is this Crimea too? No, this is the south. So let's go ahead and hit Sevastopol. So we're going to start with a shelling by our siege guns, which have 2 ammunition. We inflicted 3 artillery casualties and 1 cohesion on the naval guns there. We're going to go ahead and use Group Matenclot for the first assault, and we just destroyed the enemy fortress guns here. I'm going to go ahead and do another bombardment here, and you can see we just killed 2 artillery and 1 cohesion of the coastal army. And then I think maybe we'll have the same Matenclot offensive. I don't know that tanks make a lot of sense if that unit's obsolete, and this is the strongest, largest unit. So we'll go ahead and assault again, and there you go. We just wiped out. The coastal army is destroyed now, so all that's left is the Sevastopol Navy, their barrier troops, and so we'll see about finishing them off next turn. So a good start at Crimea and Sevastopol to finishing off this particular situation. The air status in Crimea is Axis controlled. Meanwhile, in the Stalingrad or Case Blau situation, it is also Axis controlled. And so we don't really need to do anything there. So next thing I think we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and launch the armored thrust here toward Fallblau Phase 1. Which is a drive on Vornezeth. It's an important railway junction which controls the north-south rail traffic. The capture of the city would greatly complicate the logistics of the Red Army. However, the road to Vornezeth is crossed by many rivers. There's much opportunity for the Soviets to slow down or even stop the German offensive. So you can see the primary offensive here is going to be led by the 2nd and 6th German armies, as well as the 1st and 4th Panzer armies. You can see the Panzer armies have 7 and 9 armored units respectively, as well as 33 trucks, which help provide supply, and 14, I guess, artillery, and 13, and then 5 and 10 infantry respectively. The enemy also has... the 2nd Army is a little bit more infantry heavy. Some of these units start a little bit under strength. The 2nd Army is 8 out of 10, and the 6th Army is 12 out of 12, although they have as much armor as the Panzer armies, which is interesting. We have a motorized corps that's currently pinned, so it can't attack. And then we have the 2nd Hungarian Division as well, which apparently is very well led. The general quality is very high. It's a 4-star general. 4 stars general does not coordinate well with other armies, but I guess 5 is the pinnacle of competence, so whichever. I'm tempted to use one of my points to refit the 1st Panzer Army, given they're not at 100% cohesion and experience. So the Panzer Armies of 42. Okay, so let's do this. They've got 14 artillery shells in army groups, or the 6 armies, so we're going to shell the enemy. We're going to do a blitz attack, which involves 1 ammo, 1 fuel, and 2 air power for the 4th Panzer Army, which seems the most well-equipped. You can see they make 35% progress toward the objective, and they also inflict heavy losses, 3 artillery, 2 infantry, 4 cohesion on the enemy. We'll go ahead, and now that we're kind of through, I think, that first group of the enemy, we're going to go ahead and use the 1st Panzer Army in the 2nd attack. 42% progress. You can see quite a bit of progress. We're up to 77% with 3 command points left of our objective here. So we just destroyed the Soviet 9th Army as well. We've got 3 command points left. Let's go ahead and attack with the 6th Army, which is actually going to encircle 3 enemy armies. You can see it does say 6th versus 40th Army, 1 tank, 2 infantry, 3 cohesion losses on the enemy's perspective. But actually, we encircled the 13th, 21st, and 40th enemy armies. So all that's left that's not encircled is the 28th and 38th. And then I'm wondering, we've got 19 points more, or 19% more we need to do. I'm just going to try a deep raid here with these troops. 8% progress. Could we try another deep raid? There you go. So it is the end of the first week or turn, but we did get to our objective here. We did penetrate, and as a result, the 21st, 28th, 38th, and 40th Soviet armies are all surrounded. We also have surrounded the 13th Army at Vornezeth, and the 2nd Army is turning north to guard our flank there at beyond the Sonza River, actually, so not Vornezeth. So the 2nd Army is turning north to guard our flank. We've broken through the enemy position, driven east toward Vornezeth, and so the offensive is underway with the Soviet barrier troops largely surrounded. The one thing I would have liked to have done is started the road to Rostov this turn with the 17th Army, but we didn't get a chance to do that. We ran out of command points. So that's the situation for the first turn, and we're going to go ahead and move forward here toward the next turn. There's also this Moscow focus, which is, I guess, greater than 50%, which I'm assuming influences how much the Soviets are going to send reinforcements to the south if they think you're going for Moscow. Axis cohesion is 60, which I haven't looked through the rules, but obviously that's relevant to their effectiveness. And then barbarity is 30, which influences how hard the Soviets fight. So we'll go ahead and we'll move forward to the next turn and see what turn number 2 has in store for us. So should we take Vornezeth, or Vornez? A few days' travel from our troops' position extends the range of Vornez. The city is an important railway junction for the Soviets, so the capture of the city by the Wehrmacht would greatly complicate the logistics of the Red Army. The region is also important Soviet aircraft factories. Finally, attacking the city would deceive the enemy about our intentions, making them believe that Moscow is our main objective. If von Bock is a strong supporter of attacking the city, Hitler and Halder believe that the capture would distract us from our main objective to surround and destroy the enemy in the Don Loop, while we are engaged in a speedy race with an enemy en route. So basically, we can open an operation at Vornezeth. It now becomes worth 1 victory point, and it will convince the Soviets that we may still make a threat against Moscow, which turns their attention away from us. It does involve a city battle, though, which could be risky, especially if we end up, bogging tanks down in that. Or we continue the operations, decrease the Soviet conviction of an attack on Moscow. I'm going to go with the historical option and try and take the city. So we go in here and you can see this city is now under attack. The enemy force there is currently surrounded. And so I think we'll use a command point for a breakthrough. And it looks like it's the 1st Panzer Army, so we'll do a blitz attack. That didn't do anything. That's great. We're out of supply, so we'll spend some supply points here. God damn it. So this feels like a major mistake now. We've got a panzer unit bogged down dealing with the Soviet 38th Army, which is surrounded and will eventually surrender, but they could race reinforcements in. I don't want to use all my southern offensive points there on that city, though. I want to keep driving toward our primary objective here. You can see the Soviets' 28th Army surrendered. The 37th, I don't know if that was brought in as reinforcements, but they've still got the 40th and 21st surrounded. We're going to start an attack at Rostov this turn. They did bring some reinforcements here, or I guess pulled one of the armies out here. So we're going to start a breakthrough attack here. We don't have a ton of armor, so I'm just going to assault with the 17th Army. Twice, I guess. We didn't break through there. That's great. And then we're also going to start a breakthrough here with our 4th Panzer Army for the race along the Don. That'll be the rest of our points here, but at least we start the offensive here, sweeping to the east and trying to drive towards Stalingrad. Meanwhile, in Crimea, the enemy has dug in their coastal troops, but they don't have a lot left here, so I'm just going to go ahead and assault them. And we finished them off here between these. The 30th Corps finished them off. So we'll progress, and you can see we've now taken Sevastopol. We've destroyed the last Soviet unit here, the Soviet Navy infantry, and now Sevastopol is ours. That leaves us with 1 command point for the troops in the Crimea. That front's going to close down, so we're going to go ahead and pull these troops out of here. I'm thinking we move Gruppe Mattenklot to the north to support Moscow, and then what we can actually do is shift the 4th Army in reserve to the south to support the drive on Stalingrad, potentially. That being said, what else are we going to do here? So this army, the 2nd Army is facing north, 13th surrounded, 50th has come onto the line. Push toward Orel, 1st Tank Corps to the front. So I think they pulled those guys back. There's no point in counterattacking along either the center or the north because the enemy hasn't actually begun their attacks yet. The USSR did gain air superiority here, though. That's potentially not great. All right, so first things first, let's go ahead and let's try and gain... So why don't I have any air superiority options? I forget how to pull those up. Do I not? Airlift is there. Do I not have any air superiority options? Oh yeah, click on the enemy. Okay, so air bombardment, area recon, air superiority. We're going to use 3 air power to try and regain air superiority from the enemy. We lose 1, the enemy loses 2. We're going to use both our command points on this front, regaining Axis air superiority. And I think that does it for the entire front. Or if not, at least that was maybe the only place where air superiority was an issue on that front line. So we now have Axis air superiority there. In the center and the north. In the north, the enemy has regained air superiority as well, and so we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. So the enemy lost 5 aircraft R2, and we now have air superiority over this front as well. Okay. We've used all of our points up for the second turn, so we're going to move forward to turn number 3. Sevastopol is taken. The southern fortress is ours. Cohesion of Axis forces +1. Strategic rail capacity for Army Group South +1. And Axis cohesion +5. So good result there. We now have options here where to send the 11th. So the mission of the 11th Army was to take Crimea. Now that Sevastopol has fallen, its job is done. The 11th Army can now join in our operation toward Mayas, Rostov, and then the Caucasus. But the High Command has an alternative idea, are bursting. Yodel, returning from a trip to Finland, thinks that it's possible to reactivate operations around Leningrad in order to re-involve our floundering Finnish ally. In addition, these units have been seasoned to urban combat in Sevastopol, which will be very useful in Leningrad. Another option would be to prepare for Operation Blücher, a landing on the Tamanian Peninsula, which would allow the 11th Army to take the Baku oilfields. If part of the troops were sent to Leningrad, a small-scale Blücher operation could be maintained with the remaining units. This operation would require significant air cover to protect our troops during transport. Hitler himself seems to hesitate between these different options. So we could try for Leningrad. If we do that, Axis cohesion goes up 10. The 11th is split into divisions, which are 4 sent to Leningrad. The Crimean Air Force passes to Army Group A in the south. Strategic objectives in the north are activated, and a little Blücher may be activated. If we prepare Operation Blücher, the Great Blücher plan is being studied. It'll be active within 3 weeks. Or we can send it to join Army Group South, and then it allows us to basically support the drive in the south. You want me to try Leningrad? Huh. 1 or 2? I mean, the oil wells are the objective, right? Like, shouldn't we go for those? 2 seems really risky, but I think I'm going to go for I'm going to go for 2. I think we have enough troops in the south. We're going to go for Operation 2. I know you guys, a lot of you are saying 3, but if we go with 3, it splits into a bunch of different divisions. If we go with 2, yeah, we'll go with 2. Operational adaptation. Our operations call for an offensive in 2 main directions, east and south. It therefore seems logical to split Army Group South into Army Group A in the south and Army Group B in the northeast. In this scheme, Field Marshal von Bock, who commands Army Group South, will take command of Army Group B, and Wilhelm List will have that of Army Group A. Von Bock, with whom the Führer is already a permanent in permanent conflict with, is vigorously opposed to the decision, although, okay, so create 2 groups. 2 groups are created, net gain of 1 command point. Nothing changes. The solution of 2 groups would amount to dividing our efforts in 2 perpendicular directions, making the task of our logistics even more problematic. Command points are important. I'm more worried about the logistics though, but I think getting extra command points is worthwhile. So it's really just splitting up our drive toward in the south. With that being said, I think Voronezh needs more troops. The enemy did bring in the 16th Army as reserve, as a reinforcement. The 1st Panzer Army is tied down, which I'm not thrilled with. So I'm actually going to go ahead and send Group Mataklot, I think, toward Voronezh. The enemy's not attacking anywhere along this line yet. We could also send the 4th Army. Or what we actually could do, let's do this. Let's put these guys into the capture of Voronezh. And then we're going to put, what is this front line? Beyond the Sonza River. So we're going to take Mataklot, we're going to go ahead and refit them and then send them to beyond the Sonza River. And so you can see here we now have these guys on the defensive. These guys are some of the troops from Sevastopol. And then I think, do I want to spend a command point entrenching them? We've used a whole bunch of our southern command points this turn already. All right, so these guys launched some counterattacks and failed. The 37th Army came from the strategic reserve and actually pulled out. So the race along the Don is largely open. All right, so there's not really a lot opposing us here, but we're not making a ton of progress. We're at 16% in our race along the Don. Meanwhile, the battle at Rostov. What can I do here? So we've got 1 ammo, 2 fuel. 56th and 17th Army. I guess we can bombard them and it pins them, and maybe that'll make our attack more effective. It did wipe them out the next attack. Okay. They've got fuel but no ammo. I think we'll wait for next turn for their supply to come in, but we did destroy the Soviet 56th Army, which at least was a good thing. Does Army Group A have anything in reserve? They do. The 5th Corps, the 1st Mountain Division, the Security Division. We can send these guys to the road to Rostov, I think. Maybe. Or do we just want to resupply these guys? I think we'll just supply these guys. They're so much better than anything else I can send that way. And that actually, we still do have 2 command points for this B objective. So for Voronezh, let's go ahead and do this. These guys are, we'll do a defensive withdrawal. And supply. So I'm hoping we can take Voronezh next turn, with the 2nd Army being sent forward here. Crimea has 1 command point left. Does refitting replace? Oh, I can't even refit them. So siege artillery group A, I guess. That could be used at Voronezh or maybe Rostov, but I already made my decision. Air superiority. Is it disputed here? Is that the issue? It is. So we'll knock out the Soviet Air Force there to regain air superiority. And then we'll also do the same thing. The Soviets are losing a lot of aircraft. All right, so we now have air superiority on every front. A little bit worried that we only have a corps against 3 Soviet armies at Leningrad. That may have been a mistake not to send those troops forward. Let's actually send 39th Motorized Corps to the siege of Leningrad as well to put some reserves there. And Army Group Center has troops that are in good shape in the rear. Good God, there's so many troops up here. Security Division is so, let's see here at that front. Armor's here. This is disputed also. I don't even have air power to try and regain air superiority here. Ninth Army. That's a strong army on the defense, I think, with a decent reserve. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to send some reinforcements for it on the push to Orel. Not the 4th Army. That's more than it's worth, but maybe beef and HG Mida. Oh, do not send them into battle? Fine, the 59th Corps. And then we're gonna send these guys to the front and dig them in. Okay. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this episode of Cauldrons of War Stalingrad, our first look at the Fall Blau campaign in this new game out by Maestro Syntec and published by Gaming at Work. This is an interesting, very different type of war game, looking at the German Stalingrad campaign. And so far, we've broken through the enemy front, but we're probably not advancing as quickly as we need to. We did manage to take Sevastopol, so that's good news. But we'll see how things play out. This was taken from a live stream from my Twitch channel from actually just the other night. You know, we'll see if we're able to do better than the Germans did historically in their campaign, or if we wreck our army on the Russian front here. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'm out.